It's really a privilege to be here and continue the conversation from EmTech Cambridge. As someone of Caribbean descent, I feel at home here. I have to say that I'm excited to talk, and it's a privilege to talk about really three stories today. The first is my personal story around how I became passionate about robotics. The second is the story of what Cozy is doing in the space of AI and robotics in retail. And the third is what are the long-term and near-term implications for artificial intelligence and robotics in our society at large. Right, my personal story, I've been passionate about robotics since I can remember. When I was a little boy in New Jersey, I saw the classic 80s film Short Circuit, and in Short Circuit there's a robot named Johnny Five who was created to wage war. One night he's struck by lightning, and Johnny Five no longer wants to wage war, he now wants to love people. Well, what was always more admirable for me about my guy Johnny Five was his ability to be able to move through indoor spaces and interact with humans like a human. And more specifically, his ability to be able to localize, navigate, and map out indoor spaces. And so I was privileged years later to be able to work as a researcher at Penn's Grasp Lab, tackling some of these problems, and then ultimately spinning Cozy out as a company where we're tackling this in real human environments, right, as a product. So the first industry that we're tackling is retail. And let's see if this video plays. And so this is actually an example of an off-the-shelf robot that's being powered by Cozy software. We are not hardware providers. We're actually not even robotics manufacturers. We develop software that powers off-the-shelf robots, enables those robots to know where they are in an indoor space, navigate around that indoor space, return back to the base station, but also perceive and map out all the products that are around them, right? What's really unique and special about this system is that we're not using any LiDAR, beacons, or infrastructure, right? We're using only the sensor modalities that humans have access to, namely sight and inertial. Because if we're able to rely only on human sensors, then we can build a system where robots can represent, in their robot minds, human environments in the same way we as humans represent those environments in our minds. And a retail environment is really an interesting place to start because it's very challenging. It's dynamic, things are always moving, it's densely packed, various light fluctuation. If we can build a system that works reliably in a retail setting, and there's many additional environments where this can be deployed readily as well. So in 2015, all the rage was that robots are going to take over the world, they're going to take over our jobs, and all humans are going to be unemployed. And then 3 years after that, we have the lowest unemployment rate in the United States. And so what's going on here? Maybe we're at the very beginning of this robot journey, an automation journey, or maybe there's something else going on. But either way, I think it's important for us to talk about AI and artificial intelligence robotics in a much more practical and thoughtful manner, right? So these are three different terms here that are often used interchangeably, right? AI, robotics, automation. What we're going to be talking about today, or for the sake of all using the same language, is AI-powered robotics. And so it makes sense that we're actually at this point in the AI renaissance or AI revolution, right? Because 5 years ago, all the rage was big data. We finally had the storage capacity to be able to store massive amounts of data. We were able to collect data at very high rates, right? But then we realized that we as humans don't have the time or the capacity to be able to really extract insights out of that information in a way that makes sense. So we deploy deep learning approaches, neural nets, to extract insights, and hence AI, right, where we are right now. And when I think about retail personally, it doesn't necessarily surprise me as the most tech-forward leaning space, right? If anything, within brick-and-mortar retail, the biggest revolution has been that we're no longer going to the store as much. We're actually doing a lot more shopping on our phones and online. But the reality is that, and this is going to change, 15% of Americans do most of their shopping online, while the remaining 85% do most of their shopping actually in the store. But when you go into the store, the difference now is that your online browsing history is actually following you there, right? So you're now getting push coupons, ads, opportunities based off of what you saw and you viewed online. And your phone is being tracked when you walk into these spaces. If you're in China, your face is being tracked. and customer influence, or customers' behavior is being influenced by information and AI that's following us into the actual environment in space. Because customer associates also have mobile apps on their phones that are enabling them to support the actual people in the store find products faster as well. And towards face tracking, towards actual people counting as they're moving through supercenters, grocery stores, we now have cameras where we're able to actually monitor people and know heat maps, as in how long were you standing in front of a product and how long were you looking at it, right? So these are some of the things and the trends that we're seeing in AI and data science really. So this is a map of AI in brick and mortar in retail as built by CB Insights. And you can see on the left-hand side there is Cozy, and we classify ourselves as an AI and computer vision startup. But one of the big takeaways from this map is that if this is AI in brick and mortar, which is traditionally sort of a laggard technology field, and there's this many companies tackling the space, for any other industry, you can imagine how big this map is, right? So the implications and the impact is going to be tremendous, and it already really is. So within retail specifically, I break this down into 5 categories of where we're seeing AI have an impact. Manufacturing, customer recommendations. So on the manufacturing side, right, starting with building a product, we've seen already automation along in the systemization of the assembly. But now what we're seeing is the robots that are actually assembling those products are doing it in a much more efficient way and are learning, after we give them a set of instructions on how to assemble something, how to do it more efficiently on their own, right? And so this is going to the next level of being able to do something faster and being able to learn from the data that you're collecting. We have all this information from customer recommendations and reviews online. So we have folks like IBM Watson that are partnering with 1-800-Flowers to create a flower boutique for you based off of your preferences and your order history. We have folks like PayPal, now that we have all these transactions, that we're able to extract from this big data enough insight to be able to better identify fraud online as well. And since we know your online reviews and your preferences, we can deploy chatbots to actually upsell you products online as well, right? And this is the next space that we're going to, logistics and delivery, where instead of only being deployed in the contained environment, we're now actually matching perception with AI and enabling machines to move through an indoor human or an outdoor human space or a human environment. So this is a application that I think is terrible. And I don't think really has a future, but it really demonstrates the point, right? Which is robots being deployed off of a delivery truck to deliver pizza to people's front steps. And they're using perception technologies to be able to navigate around and navigate around people, navigate around obstacles, so on. So this is really the next step that we're going to. There's been an explosion of companies within AI over the last couple of years, and there's been a lot of money invested in this space as well. And these are, I guess, 3 companies that most folks who are familiar with AI and robotics would be familiar with. One is Boston Dynamics, where we're seeing here a really interesting robot sort of replace the human altogether and taking pallets off of a truck in a distribution center. And then we see Rethink Robotics, which has a robot that's working alongside humans in a manufacturing facility. Then we have Curie, who has robots that are being deployed in environments like our home, where they're interacting with our children and basically being a remote babysitter. But even as December of 2018, 2 of these companies have gone under, right? Rethink Robotics and Curie, which both raised a lot of money. And so for us as a company, we had to ask, how could this really great technology with really great scientists not have a productization future? And we realized a few important things. One, humans are very difficult to replace because we're efficient. We can do many different things. We learn quickly, right? And it's also really hard to do robotics. The problems that we're tackling in robotics are very difficult. And it's really important that whatever you're building, whatever cool technology you're building, also is solving an immediate solution as well. So at Cozy, our goal is not to replace humans on the store floor or in the distribution center. we're actually analyzing and capturing new data that's powering people to be able to do things that they weren't able to do before, maximize their shelving space, make sure that out of stocks are always replenished so that every retail, every distribution center can maximize their revenue as well. So our opportunity is towards using data and capturing that data and analyzing it to make people better. Here is a view of our localization navigation system in an actual grocery store. You see the robot there, and this is a bird's eye view, so you see the aisles, and the robot's there on the left-hand corner. It's going to navigate around the aisles, and you can see the two sideways-facing cameras that are capturing products and shelving information as well. All right, so from this 2D view, we're then able to take this data and build out a 3D model. If we go to the next slide. And here we have the 3D point cloud that we're able to generate, and you can see in there the cyan path of where the robot actually traversed throughout the space. And if we go to the next slide, we're deployed on robots, drones, and also fixed cameras. We're actually capturing, and we can play this video, interactions with the shelf, and then analyzing where products are being moved on the shelf itself. So here, we'll see a few folks in our test space moving around products, and those products are actually going to be tracked in the cloud, and then we're going to be able to push that data to a retailer. So Monica, we can skip maybe 5 seconds ahead, and we'll see the bounding boxes that the system has been able to place around the products on the shelf. And then when products are being moved, it's being tagged as an out of stock in the wrong location, right? So this works on a fixed camera within the store, like Amazon Go, sort of, except only with cameras, and also within distribution centers as well. And this can be pushed to any technology provider as well. So, there's been a lot about sort of the data moats. The people who are going to win in AI are the folks that have the most data. And a lot of people make that argument, right? So Facebook is going to be the best at facial recognition because they have access to the most faces. But it's not just about having access to the most faces. Facebook's going to be the best at facial recognition and is because they also are employing all of our friends to tag our faces in those pictures as well, right? So if we don't have people that are actually providing a ground truth or some labeling and training of the system, then the system is not going to be reliable or able to actually perform in the space. Similarly, for self-driving cars, if you're driving along the road, a car will not know from its camera that there's a car in front of it unless a human has trained that system to know what a car looks like. So unless there's someone who's going to put a bounding box around that red car and then classify it as a red car, the system won't know that it's a red car, right? And unless there's people that are actually labeling more semantic information, like plates, chairs around a table, and so on, then the system is not going to be able to interpret more complicated images. Same thing for animals in an image, and really same thing for any text that we're or any information that we're tackling, even text. So if I'm chatting with my friend, Jamie really needs to know what Sam said in order for us to know two things: what the appropriate response should be from Sam, right, if I'm an AI agent, but also how Sam felt when Jamie said that particular statement. So we're moving towards a place where machines can actually understand us in a much more intimate way, but we need humans to be able to support that learning process. And what I think is so interesting around where we are right now is that this is from a company called Samasource, which employs workforces around the world who are labeling and training data for AI agents, right? It just so happens that due to natural socioeconomic factors and primarily exchange rate, that a lot of these hubs where people are actually doing the annotation and labeling of AI information are in emerging economies, right? So Samasource has a hub in Nairobi, Kenya, Nepal, Malaysia. What's really interesting for me in the opportunities for humans in the future is how long will the economy of us training our AI counterparts exist, and what will that really look like for us and for our applications and our occupations. So I'll leave you with that, and thanks so much for your time.